So other than, I think multiple things about the Minnesota Vikings feel like they are unsustainable. They feel like they're built on foundations of sand. By that I mean, A, Kirk Cousins is currently playing at an MVP level. We've never really seen that over an extended period of time before in his career. 2, their offensive line is still not good. It's decent. It's reasonable. The tackles. It's questionable inside. At some point, that becomes a problem when you face really good defenses. 3, their cornerbacks are a problem. Against good teams in particular, they have real issues. We're actually reaching the stage where if it wasn't for the fact that he's a suspension waiting to happen, Holton Hill should probably be starting over Xavier Rhodes.
How's our financial plan coming?
Super! Chris, any advice?
With Western and Southern, preparing for your financial future can be easier than you think. Favorite receiver?
Huh?
To get started, visit westernsouthern.com.
And then, did they play on Monday Night Football last year?
Who?
Vikings Seahawks?
I don't remember.
Wasn't that Monday Night Football?
So this is a really
Wilson had like the worst throw of the season in that game.
Yeah. This is a really interesting game because...
Vikings at Seahawks, by the way, is what we're discussing.
Yeah,
Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football. So it's fascinating because at the moment, I think the general consensus is that Minnesota is winning this game. The PFF consensus is that the reverse is happening. So if you look at PickWatch, if anyone doesn't know that, pickwatch.com, it's basically where it collates.
They're all taking Minnesota?
A lot of people. It's like 66% is taking Minnesota. On the road.
Kirk Cousins
on the road
in prime time. On the road.
Yes.
Outside of the friendly confines of a dome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In Seattle.
Seattle.
Where bad things have happened.
With MVP Russell Wilson.
Yeah. 67% are taking Minnesota right now. So, the general consensus is Minnesota's taking this. The PFF consensus, so far everybody whose picks are actually filled in are going Seattle. Green Line, which is driven off the data, likes Minnesota or likes Seattle even more than the market does. So Vegas has them as a 3-point favorite, which is essentially a pick game, right? Because they're at home.
Right.
But Green Line says the edge is actually more than that. It should be Seattle should be a greater favorite than just the home record. It's sort of a fascinating game because of that, right? The Vikings have kind of been rolling. They've got themselves back to parity with the Green Bay Packers, and generally the outside perception is, yeah, they can go and beat Seattle, and we really don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the Cousins narrative thing is more fun than anything. There's nothing in sports that's like, because this thing has happened the first 15 times, therefore it's going to happen the 16th.
History, Steve. History.
But Cousins absolutely can go have a good game.
So Cousins is now the number 3 graded passing quarterback at PFF.
He's been playing really well this year.
Only Russell Wilson, MVP caliber Russell Wilson, and Drew Brees, who's only played 220 dropbacks this season, have a higher grade.
Yeah, since those early games, Cousins has just been incredibly efficient, incredibly accurate.
He's 4th overall, right? When you go to overall grade, the rushing comes into that, and Lamar jumps him, right? Lamar's number 2 when you look at rushing.
Cousins had those ridiculous fumbles on scrambles earlier in the year. Bad ones.
But what's interesting is, so we were, started off the year. Remember, like after 2 weeks, there was like a mutiny in Minnesota. Like Stephon Diggs was supposedly going to get traded.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen was calling him out to the media. Like this was a disaster. Everyone thought Kirk Cousins was garbage and the whole thing was going to implode. Then he goes on a run and plays at an MVP level for 4 or 5 game stretch in the middle. And then Kansas City, we have, an iffy performance. It's like, well, there it goes. The roller coasters come back down. This is the start of the decline again. And then maybe Cousins can come back up in time for the playoffs. And that's when you actually want him to get hot. But since then, he's kind of played well again a couple of games. So we're now talking about a, 9-game period in which Cousins has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Better than pretty good, in fact. Been at least pretty good. That is the best stretch of his career. It is more than good enough for this team to actually win things, and it feels massively unsustainable.
No, so here's I mentioned a few weeks ago, I don't know, I haven't updated the stat, but remember Cousins had something like 30% of his yards coming just off of boot action and screens. That's a massive percentage. So I think the Vikings have done a really good job of scheming it up. They create, if I told you before, if I was playing these outside zone schemes, I would play the quarterback every time. I would say, trust my guys to play the run and the cutback. I'm attacking the quarterback. But it's not that simple, right? Because sometimes they boot, but they're going to throw it back to the screen, and other times it's a full boot. Sometimes they're booting both ways. Cousins has been, rolling out to his left like crazy and unbelievably efficient doing that. So it's not as simple as, hey, just, play the boot action every single time. But I think if you could take away some of those free yards that the Vikings offense has created, the screen game and the boot action, the rollout stuff, that's where they've got all those free yards. And then Cousins in the drop back game and in the red zone where he had struggled previously in his career has been really good. Like, he's made some incredible red zone throws, back of the end zone, away from coverage. He's done a really nice job, and he just looks really, really comfortable. And I think a big part of it is because the Vikings have created some of the easy stuff, and then he's excelling in what you would call, the true drop back situations, right?
Yeah, and if you take out the first couple of weeks where he did struggle, he's the number one graded quarterback in the NFL, both overall and in passing. Cousins, since that point, has genuinely been playing at an MVP level. It's just amazing how little confidence anybody has in that continuing.
Right. It is.
Because it's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
And you expect him to come back down to earth at some point. And this feels like the game where that would happen if it's going to happen.
Last year when they did play, I think it was ugly both ways. Neither guy played great. I mentioned that Russell Wilson throw. That was like end of the half. He was about to get sacked. He flipped it to the sideline, and instead the sideline was called Eric Kendricks. Went right into his hands.
The sideline was called Eric Kendricks,
who dropped it when he easily could have just, he probably would have run it.
What I would say about
90
the
yards
Vikings,
for a touchdown.
So other than, I think multiple things about the Minnesota Vikings feel like they are unsustainable. They feel like they're built on foundations of sand. By that I mean, A, Kirk Cousins is currently playing at an MVP level. We've never really seen that over an extended period of time before in his career. 2, their offensive line is still not good. It's decent. It's reasonable at the tackles. It's questionable inside. At some point, that becomes a problem when you face really good defenses. 3, their cornerbacks are a problem. Against good teams in particular, they have real issues. We're actually reaching the stage where if it wasn't for the fact that he's a suspension waiting to happen, Holton Hill should probably be starting over Xavier Rhodes.
That extreme, Sam?
I think so. I think Rhodes is an issue, and I think Holton Hill, in limited sample size, might be their best cover corner. Either way, the fact that that's a discussion is a problem, right? Because the Vikings have one of the better pass rushes in the NFL. They have a very good scheme, and they have cornerbacks that get eviscerated by good receivers.
This guy says Sam hates the Vikings.
Okay. I don't think that's true, but sure.
You must not know your history.
So I just think there's multiple aspects of this team that are questionable, and they're able to paper over them so far. But is that a long-term? Can you win against the better teams in the NFL with those issues? My suggestion would be no.
I mean, all that said, here are the Seahawks issues. They run the ball too much with their MVP quarterback playing at the highest level of his career. I already said, don't get fooled by the fact that he only had 200 yards last week. He lost 100 yards from drops alone last week against the Eagles. So he played at an MVP level still last week. Seattle's defense has played better in recent weeks, but it's nothing like what they were.
Their D is not good.
Right? So Seattle has just as many issues. I mean, this is...
Sure. This
is the story of the NFC and why it's so wide open. It's a whole bunch of flawed teams that are good, though.
I'm not necessarily saying that this is the game where all Minnesota's problems are going to come back to roost.
Well, you hate the Vikings.
I'm just saying that at some point they are, right? Yeah. This is not... I don't think that unless those things improve or some aspects of them improve, this is a team that can beat the best teams in the NFL. I think ultimately, like 2017... you can see it coming, right? We're going to reach a point where they face a team and the problems are suddenly exposed, and those are the issues. I don't know if this is going to be it, though Russell Wilson going up against those Minnesota corners feels like it could be problems.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good one. Will be a good game. If I'm Seattle down the stretch here, I would put more on my MVP's plate.
Yeah.
Put more on Wilson's plate here in December. Let him carry you to a number 1 seed or a bye, I should say.
This is MVP Bowl. Since week 2, these are the 2 highest graded quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, Cousins is not in the MVP race. Nobody will allow him.
They won't, but honestly, like
the Green Bay game happened.
Yeah.
So in this season,
weeks 1 and 2 happened, but
Cousins was on the winning end of a game where he threw 10 passes, and the following week was a disaster against the Packers, and he's played really well since then.
Yeah, and honestly, the numbers against Green Bay don't actually look that terrible. Like they were. I mean, he was awful.
He had like 5 turnover-worthy plays and 2 fumbles that didn't show up.
I know that, but what I'm saying is when you get to the point where he's
his numbers are good,
really well for an extended period of time, and people just start looking at the stats, he'll look good.
Oh, his stats look great.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas, you need to actually see grade or remember the game to really appreciate just how bad that was.
We were talking about week 4 with the Bears. The numbers don't look bad there. He was
That's
terrible.
what I'm saying. Yeah, you go through it, and it's 230 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, passer rating at 50. Like it's not good, but it's not, oh my God, what happened, which is what actually did happen.
Should be a good game. We're all going Seattle, like we said. A lot of people going Minnesota, which means should be a good one on primetime. Can Cousins win in primetime on the road, outdoors? Mm-hmm. Did he recently? Didn't they? What was their other primetime game recently? At Dallas.
They beat Dallas. That wasn't outside.
Yeah. Indoors.
I'm just saying, the MVP Bowl.
MVP Bowl, Minnesota and Seattle.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.